Sandra, we'll keep an update on. Let's talk more about the Madoff case. I'm joined this morning by David Apfel, a former federal prosecutor who's currently representing former Madoff clients, and Javier Cremades is a partner at the Cremades and Calvo Sotelo law firm. First, though, we'll look at the intense security surrounding one of the country's most hated men is Nicholas Casal of Casal's Associates, who is providing security for Bernie Madoff, and yet he's here with us this morning. Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for being here. Nicholas, first of all, let me start with you on the security front. I imagine this is a very difficult role. Sandra just talked about what it was like walking out of that apartment when he appeared in court the last time, and you could imagine the amount of cameras and paparazzi who are waiting for that next exit. What do you have to worry about?
Well, first of all, let me just say that we were brought in to do the bail modification agreement security plan and provide the initial security until a security company would come in and take over. So we're not providing the day-to-day security anymore. The first concern you have, I guess, the first concern that comes to my mind, and to some of the viewers who may remember it, is in the Dallas Police Headquarters when you had press and police coming there, and Jack Ruby goes and shoots Lee Harvey Oswald. So, I mean, that's a great concern. You have people whose passion, who have lost everything that they own, and they may or may not think irrationally. Plus, you have all these feeder funds out of Switzerland and Brazil, and we don't really know who their investors are, and we don't know how much they lost. So it's always a tremendous potential when you have a high-profile client.
So explain to me the security detail. Is it Bernie Madoff who hires the security detail to protect him, or is the federal government doing that because they need him alive to find the funds?
Well, no federal money at all is involved in his security. We were engaged by Ike Sorkin, Dixina Shapiro, and Dan Horowitz, his attorneys, right? And we were retained by Bernard Madoff and Ruth Madoff.
Okay, interesting. All right, let me go to you, David. David, you're inextricably linked to this case because you're representing some of the victims in it. I understand that Bernie Madoff is going in today for a dispute, perhaps, about a conflict of interest with his attorney. Why do we care, and will it impact what is expected to be a guilty plea this Thursday?
Well, I think today is going to be a non-event, Alexis. I mean, but it's an important event in the sense that the court, the prosecutor, wants to make sure that if and when Bernie Madoff pleads guilty, as we all anticipate he will plead guilty on Thursday, that the plea is untainted in any way. We don't want a situation where down the road he can say that he wasn't given proper advice by his lawyer because his lawyer was really operating for the benefit of victims rather than for the benefit of Mr. Madoff. And so it's I anticipate today is going to be nothing in court. He is simply going to be maybe a colloquy with the judge in which the conflict of interest is explained, and then he waives the conflict. But the waiver is important to protect what will be a guilty plea down the road.
So Thursday he pleads guilty. What does he plead guilty to, David, and what will the repercussions be?
Well, Thursday is an important hearing. I mean, Thursday we know that he's waived his right to an indictment by a grand jury. He's going to plead guilty to what's called an information, which is just a charge from the U.S. Attorney's Office. We don't know the parameters of that charge, but there are going to be really, I think, two important aspects of that hearing on Thursday. We're going to see the document, the charging document, and typically informations are very limited, very narrow, very cursory. I doubt this one is going to be that way. I think it's going to lay out in some detail what the prosecutors have learned about Mr. Madoff's scheme going back 15 years, 20 years, perhaps even longer than that. And there's going to come a time on Thursday where, the judge is apprising him of his rights, asking him whether he pleads guilty or not guilty. He's going to plead guilty, and then the judge is going to ask the prosecutor to explain what the jury would hear, what the government would be able to prove if the case actually went to trial. And the government will then lay out And we'll have to see how much detail, but in some detail, what the facts are of the case as they would prove them if there was a real jury there.
Okay.
And the judge will then turn to Mr. Madoff and ask him whether all of that is true. And it will be interesting to see whether or not he acknowledges the entirety of what the prosecutor says or whether he quibbles with some aspect. My bet is that he'll probably acknowledge everything because in a case like this, probably the entire hearing has been orchestrated ahead of time.
Okay.
Then the other aspect of the hearing on Thursday that will be important is that the issue of bail may well be revisited.
Okay, great points there, David. Thank you for breaking that down. Javier, let me turn to you. You're trying to establish an international forum for people who have been impacted from countries around the globe about this. Explain this forum and what do you hope to achieve?
Well, you have to consider that this is the first global fraud of history. So most of the victims are not in New York, are not in the U.S., are in Europe or in Israel, and some of them are in Latin America. And let's think in an Argentinian who put their money in a Nassau bank and using a Spanish bank. So Madoff is plead guilty tomorrow, and what can he do? He should come to New York, he should go to the Bahamas jurisdiction, he should use the Madrid jurisdiction, or stay in Argentina. It's very complicated, and we need predictability, and we need to respond on a global way to this new global challenge.
So in essence what you're doing, Javier, is you're saying to all the attorneys who represent international clients from around the globe, let's all bring our attorneys and all of our clients together so we can formulate a crystal clear plan as to how to get back punitive damages or how to be a part of this long-term decision as to the fate of Bernie Madoff and the funds.
We think that the tools that we have today to protect our clients, our interests, are not sufficient for a case like Madoff. And we think that new answers should be provided. And our alliance of law firms, where we represent about 80% of the attorneys representing Madoff victims all over the world, would love to see governments thinking in the possibility of establishing international financial courts, which could be of help in some cases like this. And not only Madoff cases, you're talking about Stanford, and you're going to see more global stories.
Let's hope we don't see too many more of them. All right, Javier, thank you very much. Nicholas as well. And David, gentlemen, thank you very much. Great conversation.